All right, everybody, Alex Color 247 here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on this video. I'm very excited to have the president of Arrival, Avinash Rugoobur. Is that pronunciated correctly?
Perfect. Yep.
Thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate you taking your time to jump on, especially on a big day like today, especially with the announcements that's been coming out. So,
Yeah, thanks.
no problem. So obviously Arrival was founded in 2015, and you guys have been growing substantially, and you have participations with other companies helping you develop overall your product. I've seen the early stages prototypes with Royal Mail as well as UPS, and then you guys had your gem of your alpha, and you just got your beta. But you guys are dispersed across the globe overall and very strategically, and I don't think really people pay attention to that, which we'll get into with the microfactories and expanding. But what I want people to really understand is what makes Arrival so different than its competitors.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, Arrival doesn't just produce the electric vehicle. It produces I like to say, it produces the systems that create electric vehicles. And the reason we do that is so that we can reduce the cost of going electric. So as you know, and your viewers may know, that electric vehicles currently have a price premium. So when you're looking at the commercial vehicle segment, if you're in charge of the purchase and you have to make a decision between buying a fossil fueled vehicle or an electric, the capital you need to spend factors into that decision, and it delays your ability to move to electric. Mm-hmm. So with Arrival products, they're price competitive with diesel and other fossil fuel equivalents, and they're produced locally with microfactories that you mentioned. So, these microfactories are paying local taxes, hiring local jobs. But we have a range of vertically integrated technologies. To enable this, we've developed our own components, so all the things like the battery, the BMS, the human machine interface. We've got our own software, so that's all of the control level on the vehicle, but also all the data that comes off to do fleet telematics and tools. We have a very unique composite material, so we don't use typical steel on the body. We use a composite, and that's recyclable and fully sustainable. And then we have these microfactories that produce it. So all of that together helps to lower the upfront purchase price. And also it helps to further reduce the TCO because, for example, the vehicle is lighter with the composite. The components can be upgraded like plug and play. So you can scale the battery modules. If new technology like autonomy comes along, you can swap those components out for that. So the hardware and software is upgradable over the vehicle. So we really just took a blank sheet approach to it. And I think we are, the only ones who've actually questioned even the production methodology, which realistically hasn't changed in 100 years, and it served its purpose. But the gains that we're going to get now by continuously improving that process versus creating a new manufacturing process with the available technology that we have and innovating on that, I think there is a step change in terms of what the new system's capable of.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. That's a great overview overall of your company. And a lot of people kind of goes over everyone's head is CapEx, like how important CapEx is. And you guys, very minimal. It's not that much to build out. And sometimes you don't even build out a building. You kind of take over a warehouse, which allows to cut down the time to being fully operational. What's the average cost for CapEx to build out your microfactories, as well as how much time does it take from finding the location and then you choose it, like Charlotte, like today, and then how long does it take to go to being fully operational?
So for example, with Charlotte today, we announced approximately 41 million in investment that we'll do in the area. The CapEx of a microfactory is under 50 million. When you think about that and you think about how a microfactory can produce 10,000 vans or 1,000 buses to serve its local area, we think of the microfactory as a product. So the CapEx and then the OpEx and the vehicle BOM, etc. We look at the microfactory, each microfactory, to be able to produce in the vicinity of around 100 million in revenue. So it pays itself back quite rapidly. So the idea here is the way the production system works is you quickly pay off the CapEx of the actual microfactory.
Yeah.
And then you're able to basically rapidly scale that out. And so to your point, it also means that when you've got a typical production process, which is hundreds of millions of dollars up to billions of dollars, and you're talking about a factory that's millions of square foot versus ours, which is around 200,000 square foot. When you're looking at where you can place those factories,
Mhm.
Obviously, with Arrival, we can take an existing warehouse and we can convert it, to your other question, in about 6 months to a production facility. And because of the composite I was mentioning, we don't need a paint shop. We don't need a metal stamping plant. The paint shop particularly needs environmental clearances in many cases. We don't have any of those requirements because of the way the material works. So you can essentially, like we announced with Charlotte,
Yeah.
essentially drop into a city and have a production facility up and running. And, we're producing our bus at the end of the year. And this factory in Charlotte in particular is producing our electric van.
Mhm.
So.
How like and that's how to be a very successful electric vehicle company, from what I've seen to competitors and those not only in consumer but also in commercial. The biggest thing is that you can have, and we'll get into it, you can have your partnerships, but how can you execute? You need to execute these numbers in order to support those order numbers. And the way that you guys build up, it's rapid expansion, it's rapid ability to support and fulfill those orders. So being able to get this up built out so quickly, and how you're going to be able to fulfill that capex so you're truthfully becoming profitable in a short period of time, that shows the success and the wealth of a company. And that business strategy is completely genius, and I think that you and your team have really made something special. So you have three microfactories now, and you're going to be built out. Obviously you guys are in multiple locations, and I've looked through it. You're in the UK, obviously, United States now, and you're in Russia, the Netherlands, Israel, and Luxembourg. But like, I think Luxembourg is really, really important because it's mainland and it's the center point of Europe. It's between France and Germany and Belgium. I think that's really strategic. Obviously, you cannot tell me, but I think that there's a lot more announcements coming up soon. I kind of saw Charlotte coming, but I think that there's more announcements coming soon as you guys continue to expand. So having that ability to not really fork out billions upon billions of dollars to build out like a gigafactory, you have a brilliant way of just focusing on the electronics, the robotics, where you can just place into a warehouse that's already built out for you. So I think that's a really big difference, and that's brilliant. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. So just on that point, I think the nuance there is that, with the capex model and the fact that, as I mentioned, it's the systems that make vehicles. So, our components are all built for assembly in a microfactory. The composite material is actually produced in a microfactory.
Mm-hmm.
The battery assembly is done in a microfactory. So when you think about that capex model as well, and the fact that we've created this toolkit that can rapidly go to different vehicles, and I'll just touch on that point for a sec. The bus, the van, the large van, and the small vehicle platform that we've announced to date all use the same components. They're literally using the same battery module and shared components. That's important because now this system has a lower capex requirement, and you can react faster. 6 months, as we mentioned, to start production. It means that one of the most difficult things in the traditional space, in the OEM space, has been, how do you react to demand fast enough, or how do you even change the product that's coming out of the factory fast enough? Because it's all large scale capex and takes a long time to do, right? Yeah. Whereas with us, it's agile and flexible. So we can go into a city like Charlotte and we're making electric vans. When the small vehicle platform is out, bang, we're doing the small vehicle platform there. We can also do them in lower volumes and still be profitable. So the flexibility you've built into the system, when you don't have to make, to your point, in a gigafactory or mega factory, hundreds of thousands of vehicles with low margin to be profitable, and then you have to run it for years to pay back the billions you've invested. I mean, it's just flipped the model on its head. I think it's a decentralized, agile model.
Absolutely. And when I look into an electric vehicle company to potentially invest into the company, I've had history with other companies, and from looking at what has not worked and what has worked, the biggest thing is, and I'm not sure if you've seen my YouTube video, there's a reason why I added you three as a whole as the best investments, because the main key is vertical integration. If you are focusing purely on third-party OEMs to take care of building out your company, building out your chassis, your batteries, you name it, the margin of revenues can be so small that you're not going to be profitable. And like you said, not going to be able to pay back the amount of debt that you have put yourself into. That's why I'm not attracted to those other investments. That's why this is the amount of growth, the amount of health of a company is going to remain healthy as time passes. So I think that that's the biggest thing. And overall, you guys are vertically integrated from your skateboard technology to your composite exoskeleton, and overall, even your software is all in-house. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think it's important to notice that's by design from day one.
Mm-hmm.
When we looked at what the objective was how do you get best in class electric vehicles at a similar price point to diesel, to us, because that's the inflection point of adoption, as we mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You have to look at every part of the design, development, production process. And that vertical integration was part of the mission of Arrival from day one. To your point, the other thing about if everybody's using the same bits and pieces
Mm-hmm.
and the same production process, it's very difficult also to differentiate yourself. I mean, you mentioned the payback period, but even the differentiation, it's coming on sort of minor parts or branding or, the story that you're telling. Whereas for Rival, it's coming from the tech that's enabling us to do something very different to the industry. And so, we're over 1,600 employees. We've been at this for 6 years, and it's the software. And even the software, there's three layers of software within Arrival. There's the control layer on the components, and that's what allows like a plug and play architecture. Think like a desktop PC, the way we've done our components. You can just literally swap stuff in and out. Then there are I mentioned the fleet tools, that so all the data comes out and you're providing that to operators. Really important for small, medium enterprises to have access to more data and detail about their own vehicles and how they're running, because every cent matters in the commercial vehicle segment. And then the third layer of software is internal tools that create the loop between our design, our engineering, and our microfactory production. And all that software, is essentially in-house. So half of that, out of the 1,600 people, 90% are engineers, half are software. So we have a really heavy software talent in our company. And then, you mentioned the components, you mentioned the composite, the robotics, and the microfactory. It's all done in-house, and it's all it can help you reduce costs on every level,
Mm-hmm.
but it also helps you simplify it. When you think about the whole thing as the system, it helps us really simplify the product. And simplifying something is a lot more challenging than making it complex. It takes a significant amount more work. But by simplifying all of the components and the composites and the skateboard, it's enabled the production in a microfactory. You can't take an existing vehicle and just try and produce it in a microfactory. It's never going to work. You have to design it for the microfactory. So all of that has to happen as a system. So, you're controlling the costs, you're enabling a better production system, you're controlling the user experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is also something that, we know it from really great technology, how important the user experience is. Mm-hmm. But if you look at commercial vehicle segment to date, I mean,
it hasn't really changed. It hasn't really changed over 30 years.
Changed. Exactly. It hasn't changed. And it's not exactly the nicest experience, even for the drivers. Yeah. When you think about how many bits and pieces they have to add to it just to get data that they need and just do their job, and the way they walk in and out of the vehicle every day. It's been designed for the production system, but not for the user. Exactly. And so with our flexibility, we were able to bring in folks that are actually going to be operating these vehicles. Doesn't matter if it's the bus or the van or the small vehicle platform, and work with them to understand how they'll use the vehicle and design the vehicle for them. So it's enabled us a lot of flexibility. And I think you're hearing some folks talk about vertical integration now, the importance of it, to your point. Yeah. But this was something that we started 6 years ago.
Yeah, you guys were ahead of the game before any other person does. And that's why I'm not sure if, obviously, you guys, the only thing that you guys probably do resource out is probably battery power cells. And I'm not sure. And that's it.
Then everything. And safety systems that, like airbags and things like that, which take a very long validation process.
But everything else, like there's some people that go to a United States base company like Magna. They go to them to build out. And that's, in my mind, some companies can do that. It's good for them. But you're going to put yourself in debt. You're going to limit yourself. You're going to put a ceiling on it so you can't grow substantially. So that's why vertical integration is so important. And I love the fact that you brought up the issue where you are literally talking to the drivers themselves. And I've seen at the beginning of your early prototypes with Royal Mail, and you guys have changed substantially since that time frame, where you guys were a little bit taller, a little bit higher to step in. And then as you talk to the drivers themselves from the United States, from the UPS, from Royal Mail, and Lord knows, maybe many others, that you're taking their word into it, and you're basically molding it into what they want as a whole. Because I've been in the military. I know my knees are jacked up. I know my back is
Yeah.
jacked up. And you can only know what people in the delivery service lifting up large packages, trying to get in and out. I've seen past interviews and being able to make it so it's the most comfortable for them and make it more useful and more essential and basically more efficient for them. That's exactly what makes you guys work better. Don't stay in the past, know what they want and rotate to the future. So that's exactly what I love.
So
And
when you think about I'm really glad you picked up the nuance on just even the step in,
mhm.
because that takes a lot of engineering effort that may not be seen by majority of folks that are looking at the van and think it looks cool and all of that. But that little design and having a fully flat floor in our bus that lets people clean and easy so you don't get dirt stuck in corners, and thinking about the driver, the passenger, and the pedestrians that are outside, and also the operator in the back office and what data they need and how they need to see their vehicles and operate it. There's folks who service and maintain it. Like all of that really takes up a bulk of the engineering effort as well. It's like simplicity and that user experience. And I'm glad you picked up on that, because I think it's one of the things that we're really happy about is that when we have folks that are drivers, that are operators, that are interacting with these products, their feedback is extremely positive because it's been designed around them.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it so attractive to other companies coming in, because any Joe Schmo kind of company is like, this is my product. Do you like it or not? Your guys are like, this is my product. Do you like it? I can adjust it for you. I can fully customize this thing for what you want. What do you want me? You want me to add a hook here? I got it.
Yeah.
And you can adjust the size accordingly. We've seen from the alpha, which I absolutely love the alpha. I was like, that's a great design. And then you guys rotated into the beta, which is a little bit more realistic at times, but it makes it so I think that, like you said, you guys are talking to each user as each stage goes from your beginning stages to your alpha to now your beta. You're seeing it start to evolve as you guys are taking the insights from the delivery workers as well. So I think that's really big. And I think that we kind of, again, another thing that we kind of went over was your composite. That's a really big deal. And the fact that people always like looking for the era that we are in. Everyone's rotating into green energy. Everyone's rotating into, hey, we need to do electric. We need to do electric. I get that. Every company's trying to go electric. I get it. But there are other things, other pollutants, other things that are a factor of trying to go to net zero. And is the composite like exoskeleton that you guys have. No other company's doing this whatsoever. I looked at it, I'm like, when I watched your video, I went, really? And then I watched it throughout the whole period, and I saw you guys do an example of your panel. I'm like, wow. So you're telling me it can flex, and if someone hits your car, it may break like the roll cage of it, but then the exoskeleton itself, it just bounces back. But if there was ever a tear, you guys would be like, well, give me your panel, we'll break it down, and we'll give you a brand new one. So it's basically overall, like you said, it's a circle of life of the company itself. Whatever you give out, you can get back and do it again. So that's massive.
It's the composite. You mentioned that. It's also the components. Yep. So even they can come back in and be reused. It's the microfactory itself. So if you think about the microfactory, we've got a mission of zero waste to landfill, reduced water footprint. So when you're thinking about sustainability, to your point, it's everything, and it's the product attributes itself. So by having a lighter vehicle, for example, it means with that efficiency, you're charging it less, you're using less power for the same kilometer that you would do or mile. And so those add up in everything that we do. And it creates a sustainability profile, I would say, across the company, rather than just, hey, it's electric, so therefore it's green. Well, it's more than that. It's how we reuse components, the composites breaking back down. Like you said it. Even it's threefold with the composite. It makes a lighter, more efficient vehicle. Because it's more durable, you're changing the panel less, so you're literally keeping that component in use longer. And then when you do take it back, you break it down into its raw materials and you can recycle it back into the process.
Exactly.
So not that technology enables three things.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's, again, efficiency. I've been looking, obviously people who are following me, that I'm looking to Lucid and many others, and battery efficiency is the most important thing. So there's a reason why electric has been specifically for short-term deliveries. And that's why when it comes to batteries degrading over time, it's because of the large amounts of loads that they're supporting as they pass on, and then it just becomes dead weight. So that's where, again, battery efficiency. You guys are allowing battery efficiency to happen before you even truly upgrade the battery itself as time passes, because we know battery technology is expanding overall. You have your own battery sector yourself, and you're expanding your technologies. So I love that, and I also love the fact that you guys have your battery itself, the panel. You guys can change it, and each one has its own like supervisory technology, where if something happens where it's overheating, it turns itself off and it lets people know, hey, this is what's happening. So yeah. Do you have any insight on your battery technology as well, or
yeah, so the battery, the cell is from we've got a partnership with LG Chem, LG Energy. Everything else we've done ourselves. So instead of using, so there's a few unique things about our battery tech. So one, it's as a module, not as a typical pack that you would see. This is actually important to your point, because one, if there's ever an issue with one of the modules, the vehicle can keep going and you can just literally swap that module out. Mm-hmm. Two, you can size the capacity according to the needs. So if you look at a lot of the profile of the fleets, not all vehicles are doing, 200-300 miles. Some are doing under 100 miles, under 50 miles. Yeah. But if you're having to pay for the pack, you're carrying that weight and you're carrying the cost, even if your vehicle's not needing that range. And so for us, you can literally size that accordingly. And then when the batteries come back in, we obviously can swap those modules out. If there's new tech, more efficient tech, we can put in a new version. But those batteries, if you look at the usage profile, obviously at some point, it's more efficient to change to a new module than it is to continue to use the existing one. But you can still use that as energy storage system. So it's not like that battery is, dead for life. It just doesn't necessarily have the same charging profile that it would have had previously, but it can still be reused. So we have, yeah, go ahead.
So you're telling me that, like, something that, again, kind of went over everyone's heads, went over mine. So you're telling me that Arrival is potentially going into energy storage here?
I'm saying that the way, if you think about what Arrival is looking at,
okay.
When you think about how much we're focusing on the end-to-end ecosystem that the operators and our customers go through, I think we are constantly seeing uses for this technology system in multiple areas. Obviously, I'm limited in terms of what I can tell you.
I'm sorry,
but no, that's fine. But it's obviously an area that could potentially be something that Arrival could move into, just because of the modularity of our battery tech.
Absolutely. And I'm seeing other companies utilize their battery tech, their Lego bricks, you name it, and they're utilizing it into energy storage. So exciting times. Obviously, if you had any information, you could tell me, but I'm definitely excited. And the way that you guys are built out, it's kind of like it is a brick type system. It's modular, and being able to swap out in the future is great. And so it doesn't limit the fleets to be like, well, I had this van that's been with me for over 3 years, and I can't change out the battery, and it's already degrading to half of its life. So they can come back to you and exchange it out. That's amazing. So
battery day, Alex, I think it's important to note that the auto industry is going through its biggest change we've seen, right? You've seen in the retail segment, obviously there's ride sharing, there's autonomous coming, and there's all this technology change. Even things like Bluetooth standards changing can trip up an existing model, which is, you've got tech and then you just drive it until 10, 20 years. And then obviously at the end of that, all the tech's old. But technology is changing so rapidly now that it was important for us to have this plug and play architecture, so that not just the battery, but let's say, as we move into autonomy or any other technology, 5G or anything else that comes along, the vehicle can be kept up alongside the latest tech.
Over time. Yeah, absolutely. So over everything that we have covered, from building it out to customizing it and customizing it to the delivery companies, obviously you're going to have someone that you're working with to make this happen. And for the beginning stages of Arrival back in 2015, you guys have made certain partnerships, and specifically it was UPS and Royal Mail. Can you give any insights on what they have said to you guys and what you have had overall, and how that relationship is going on, as well as any potential partnerships even more in the future?
Yeah, so we're obviously in constant dialogue with both that you mentioned, Royal Mail and UPS. I think we publicly announced some information about UPS and their order and Arrival. UPS also actually invested
Mhm.
in Arrival as well in our private round. Uh, UPS have also made some comments about the Charlotte Microfactory, in that it's a significant milestone for them as well to deploy their electric vehicles.
Mhm.
So those partnerships have been crucial to your earlier point about designing the right types of vehicles for them. The other partnership that we announced just recently is we're doing a trial with First Group in the United Kingdom. They're one of the largest operators in the UK. So I think what you're seeing is obviously commercial traction, and now we're moving into the phase of, with the vehicle starting, on their closing run to start production. There'll be a lot more, I would say, announcements about partnerships with us, and I think a lot of that just comes down to the vehicle attributes. So if you think about a van, for example, our small van, it's 4 ton with a 2 ton payload,
Mhm.
and at a similar price that you would pay for a diesel equivalent. There's no product that can match that, and that's actually the crucial point, because you're not just making the decision to go green, you're still getting a best in class product.
Exactly.
When you count the cargo volume and the payload, and then the price point, and then the TCO,
Yeah.
you can imagine that our sales team have a lot of conversations going because of the capability of that vehicle. So, I can't say too much more than already been publicly declared, but what I will say, watch this space, because I think there's some very interesting movements around our partnership model to come.
Absolutely. And again, don't want to ask any more questions than you can and potentially try to squeeze it out from you. So obviously Royal Mail has been talking to you guys. They were currently on a trial. I have obviously looked into it, and they have been, Royal Mail has a history of being kind of a little bit of a hard-headed at times because they want to have the product just right. So I know that they have been a part of the situation of you guys updating your betas as well as overall your vans. And people need to understand that there's more other partnerships out there. FedEx, obviously DHL, and then DB Schenker. There's tons of companies that are going to be coming towards you. And I've looked at their headquarters. I know where they're at. And truthfully, things can come in soon. And obviously, legally, you cannot say anything. I get it. I absolutely understand. So one thing that, again, we've been focusing on the van, and we've been focusing on your delivery vans, but the bus, the Metropolitan Bus, that's where you guys are going to be building that out first and delivering it out to your partnership that you said, First Bus. And that's something that we need to also talk about. So where it will, well, obviously, when did that start developing? And then when is that going to be start to deliver? Like, we know it's going to be 2021, but where locally, what areas will that bus start to be delivered?
Yeah, so in terms of, when it was developed, it was actually alongside the van. It's just had been in, relatively quiet. And
Mhm.
that's because again, we're using the same technology. So, we have the bus program in development in parallel with the van program. We've also got the small vehicle platform. But I think that's one of the things that's interesting, is it shows how, back to, again, the systems that produce vehicles, it shows that we can use the exact same approach, and we can go bus, which is obviously very large, and a lot more mass. In ours, it's like 8 to 9 tons, depending on the configuration, which is most competitors are around 13 plus. So it's still light, but in terms of the actual size of it, it's a big vehicle. To a van, to a small vehicle platform, all using the same technology parts. And I think that shows the flexibility in the system. So it's been developed in line with operators as well. And as someone who's been, in and out of the auto industry for like the last couple of decades, I never thought I'd say, "Wow, that's a cool bus." But I can tell you, seeing it live, I'm like, "That's a cool bus."
That is a cool bus.
So, yeah, it's a really, you've probably seen the screens and everything that we're doing in terms of the technology and the user experience. It's a crucial product, because it's really important that the public transportation ecosystem also moves along to being electric. And you think about the commercial vehicle segment, that plays a really important role in how all members of society can get around. And obviously, in some regions and countries, the bus plays a bigger part. But what we'd like to see is that, we, like, for example, this announcement with Charlotte, part of the work is going to be working together on a transportation ecosystem.
Mhm.
And the bus would obviously play a crucial part in that as well. Now, in terms of the regions, obviously we've been discussing the UK, but the bus will be also in the US,
Mhm.
and then Europe, and then you made a mention of some of our locations. I think when you factor in the fact that a microfactory can be up and running very quickly, and you can homologate the products. Basically, there's no real, let's just put it this way, every major city needs good public transportation.
Exactly.
And, the buses would be a product that could go anywhere.
Absolutely. And the thing that I've been talking to my followers is, and I've been trying to educate them, is to kind of connect the dots. Clearly, CEOs, presidents can't say things, but if you look at the situation, if you look at the way that you guys are built out and what you are like targeting, we can put 1, 2, 3 together without you really saying anything. So
Yeah,
absolutely understand. And so, as well as what we talked about the vans, it's about the consumer. And I've seen the way that your R&D has been going on for the Metropolitan Bus. And if people don't really pay attention to it, it's very low riding. It's a low riding bus, and it's done that. So again, doesn't hurt people with knees. People with disabilities don't have to make a larger step. And then you actually have a ramp that comes out from the entrance point itself. The whole way from your whole designing, your chief of design to the other workers as well, you guys are literally twisting it and molding it into the point where it's going to fit every single person consumer wise. And both sectors that we have talked about, from the delivery vans, which is for commercial, and then metropolitan buses, which is for the consumer itself, truthfully, these sectors have really been overlooked, and everyone's focusing on, hey, Tesla, consumer, hey, I'm going to pay $120,000 for a vehicle that's going to degrade over time, and then I have to buy the brand new one. And then all these other competitors, no one's focusing on these sectors. The only ones that do are a very small amount. But in order for these companies to build out, the only one that can build out quicker is you guys. And then there's Proterra that's going in for electric vans. But again, that's what they're doing. They're not doing small vans. You guys are literally building the whole vehicle itself for delivery vans. So that's why the sectors that you guys are going after is very important, because it's going to help the overall world transition to electric as well as zero net carbon. So there's obviously, we talked about the partnerships. There's one technology that you talked about at the beginning stages, and is autonomous driving. And I've talked to my father who did delivery as well. And he looks at it like, do I really need autonomous? It depends. I think that one thing that you guys are probably very early in just the development, clearly you cannot tell me, but what autonomous driving would be utilized is for the long haul and allow the drivers to potentially sleep while en route. And you guys have utilized this in Robocar series. Can you give any updates on to the autonomous driving development, as well as what kind of things you're going to be implementing this for?
Yeah, well, I'll definitely, Alex, if you haven't seen the Robo Race latest video, we actually just released where we're taking on Lucas DeGrassi.
Yeah, I saw that. He likes you guys a lot, and you guys are basically partnered with him. I love it.
Yeah, he's one of our partners on that, and he sits on the board actually for Robo Race. What Robo Race is an ability for us to push the boundaries of autonomy that you can't do on a road, right? And that's important because you can try out all different types of technologies in that space. Like, what happens if really you don't use LiDARs, or what happens if you try to do, real-time mapping and all sorts of technology within the space. But just like your father said, I think the thing about autonomy in the commercial vehicle segment is there are layers of it and use cases of it. It's not that, you still need somebody in the bus, for example. There's reasons beyond just driving to have somebody in the bus.
Yes.
And that's going to be, for the safety and comfort of passengers, to make sure everything around is going well. So we don't look at replacing like full road going autonomy for quite some time in the commercial vehicle segment. Delivering packages to the door, that's still such an important part of what the driver does. And so autonomous technology to us augments the safety capabilities of the vehicle, and also simplifies some operations. So what do I mean by that? If you go to a bus depot or even a van depot with a large fleet, and you see the complexity of figuring out how to, clean the vehicle, charge the vehicle, load the vehicle, those are areas where technology today, because it's a controlled environment, you can actually use existing technology today to enable, for example, depot operations. And we're working with our partners on actually on that tech. But it's then also becomes things that you can do. For example, in the bus, if the bus is taking off and there's a bicyclist, you can recognize that bicyclist and make sure the cyclist and not have any sort of incident. So there's layers of that technology that can really augment and improve the safety, the operations, and that's today. And then RoboRace is seeing just like how far we can get to using, let's say, using one of the lenses is using the simplest technology to enable autonomy. But if you go back to our vehicle architecture, when that technology is ready, we can literally like upgrade the vehicle for it. So, a UPS or any other folks doesn't have to be like, oh, now I need to go buy a new set of vehicles because all this new tech's out. Well, you can actually just upgrade the vehicle.
Just come in and upgrade it. And I love that. And again, that's something that's really not being said. Like, people want to just fall asleep in their car and let it go. And like that, the only place that will be utilized is long haul delivery. That's the only time. And obviously that's not something you guys are focusing on right now. Down the road, potentially. The safety aspect of it, like you said, that's the main focus. Like, if someone's not looking at the front of the vehicle and something slips, like the phone, or they're in a phone call or whatever, it allows the company, the vehicle itself, to react in a quickness. So I think that's a great implementation of autonomous driving, not just switching the flip and like, all right, now drive for me. It's having it on overall as an oversight, as a supervisory for the company, for the vehicle itself. So that's really amazing. And I appreciate you answering a lot of those questions. There are some questions from my followers. I was wondering if you would like to answer some questions. So this is from Investuck. He says, do you plan to allow a consumer purchases of their vans rather than just commercial?
Oh, absolutely. I think that is the question that for anybody to be able to purchase our van, right? Not a retail segment, I think is the question.
So yes, like anybody,
yeah, we plan on allowing and enabling anybody to purchase an Arrival vehicle.
Yeah, and if people pay attention to the Microfactory scheme, like it is built for not only the distribution centers, but also for local businesses. So if local businesses want to buy, they can definitely buy out.
I mean, that's a huge part of the market. The small medium enterprise really benefits even further from an Arrival van. And we haven't discussed this too much, but I can tell you that what we can enable for the small medium enterprises is a step change again compared to what's available now. And that's, we mentioned some of the cost savings, but the data that we can give, the fleet tools, to be able to just enable an operator of any size to be able to understand and control their fleet, even their driving patterns, and how they could be more efficient, because again, every dollar counts. So yes, it will be available for small medium enterprises, single purchase, and obviously the large fleet customers that we've announced today.
That's great, and that's something that really I don't think anyone has really asked you that. And you're paying attention to commercial, and I think that's something that you should absolutely continue to focus on. But people got to know: are you going to be building out a sedan or SUV in the future at all? Is there any kind of like thoughts? Hey, Avinash, should we build out something for the consumer? What are your thoughts there?
I think generally our for your viewers, we were in stealth, literally in stealth mode until about 2 years ago when we announced an investment from Hyundai, Kia, and UPS, and part of that is because we firmly believe we should say things when they're ready. And, so one of the things, we are talking, we've been saying more about our bus and our van because, we can actually show you, here it is, and so what I would say to that question is there's nothing that limits our systems of technologies from going into any segment. And, I just want to make that clear. We're showing that in essence with a large vehicle like a bus, all the way down to our small vehicle platform, which obviously we'll be discussing more in the future, and anything in between. But there's nothing that says it should only be commercial. So it can go. We can literally take that and really use it in any way. But it is very important that we are really focused on the commercial vehicle segment now and the products we have now, and not lose that focus by trying to chase like something that, that would be cool. We're making the bus cool and the van cool and a small vehicle. So focus is really important. And I think, right now the company is extremely hard at work on, getting these vehicles. We're doing trials that we mentioned, getting startup production going. That's heavily the focus. And I think that's the right way to ensure success with such a talented team.
Absolutely. It's kind of like looking as a like a restaurant. Like you're focusing on your best dishes. You're not gonna be
Yeah,
like trying to
without,
I'm gonna fuse this thing. I'm gonna throw Chinese, Mexican into this. No, like
yeah,
this doesn't work here, man. This doesn't work. So I think that what you guys are doing, remaining it on your roots and the foundation of the company and the business strategy is great. We've seen other companies and people from last year that have gone through specs. They try to throw a gimmick play in it. Let's not focus on gimmicks. I'm like you said, hey, look at this CGI rendering of a truck. It looks great, right? This is what we're going to try to do. Okay, so let me see it. When's it going to happen? Oh, okay, that's great. But that's great. I think that's exactly what we should do. So the future is limitless. Your technology can be implemented in any sort of way, from your commercial vehicle vans to your metropolitan vans, and Lord knows, maybe even large hauling as battery technology continues to expand, because we know that solid state batteries are coming up, and I've looked into researching quantum batteries in like 20 to 25, maybe 50 years. You never know. But overall, I think that you've been amazing. Thank you so much for jumping on. Do you have anything that you would like to say to the followers before you head out?
Well, probably if your followers aren't aware, we'll actually be we're doing our shareholder vote on the 19th, and then the following week we'll actually be if all of that goes well, we'll be closing and publicly traded. So ARBL will be the ticker symbol. I think it's one thing I would just share is my personal view on this. I think that that as a society we need this shift to greener technologies, and I think it's one of the binding missions in Arrival of so many people. And the fact that we can bring microfactories to local environments and support local communities is and we touched on it. It's sort of one of the things that people understand that microfactory is cool because it's decentralized and lower capex. But the fact that, like in Charlotte today, we can announce that we'll be, looking at over 200 jobs. We'll be paying local taxes there. We're investing capex there. We're producing the vehicles that will be used in that area there, right? And if you think about that, expanded out, all around the world is what we want to see, right? All around the world, where local people are helping design and develop and engineer and produce the vehicles that are important to them and their needs, in whether it's getting goods or people from A to B. I think that is a really compelling mission to be part of and go after. So I think the world needs this, and I think Arrival's in a really good position to really scale this out to everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you, Avinash. And I look forward to seeing you guys grow as a company, and as well as, like you said, guys, you guys make sure to go and vote if you're a shareholder. March 19th, very important day to vote out. And then as everything goes well, you guys will be public next week. Thank you so much, Avinash. I really appreciate you jumping on, and hopefully get to interview you again sometime as more announcements comes out. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we definitely have to do it again. Thanks, Alex, and thanks to you.
Thank you.